I'm just trying to make the most of it right now. I'm really just trying to make the most of my life right now and trying to figure out who I am without feeling so sad about it. I'm DJ Psyched, and you're watching the Get Psyched YouTube channel. Let's get psyched about YouTube. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, if you've been to my channel before, welcome back. I don't do content like this very often. I haven't done a video where I just sit down and talk about life. And today I had somebody comment on an old video of mine, and it was just a really nice comment. It kind of inspired me to want to talk about something just more about life, because I haven't made content like that in a really long time. So that's what today's video is going to be about. And when I was thinking about life and how I could sit down and talk about something that's meaningful, I just started to think a little bit about how like strange this time period in life is, like being in your 20s. I noticed that it's not what I thought it would be, and I think a lot of my friends are having that experience too. And so I think it's something worth, having a quick discussion about, I guess. It's just a strange time. And so I kind of wanted to talk a bit about why I think that is. Also, I just kind of want to get a little anecdotal here and talk a bit about my experience being in my 20s. I think some of us will have some stuff in common, like feeling like you thought you knew who you were, and then you got to a certain age and you were like, oh no, I don't know who I am. Like I'm 23, about to turn 24 in just a week. I don't have everything put together. I can't find my hat to record. I didn't write proper notes for this because I've been working all day and I just kind of had this idea. And I wanted to talk about this because I think this has been on my mind like a lot lately. And I think it's kind of important to talk about how life is super overwhelming, because I feel like sometimes I get trapped in this cycle of thinking that I'm the only person that's super overwhelmed with life and can't feel like they can handle it all the time. And I don't think that's true. I think a lot of people feel that way. Between working a full-time job and trying to balance having friends and family and trying to reach goals and trying to keep your apartment clean, and then of course you've got all these things you didn't ask for, like, oh, I gotta file my taxes, oh, I gotta, if you have a car, you gotta pay property tax. There's all these random things you always have to do, all these phone calls you have to make to random companies, all these, you gotta, oh, you live in an apartment, well, you're constantly calling, maintenance to do things for you, you're constantly going to the office to ask questions. If you have your own place, you're constantly trying to figure out how to fix your own stuff. And I think that life is just so much more than any of us would have ever thought when we were kids. And there's this like weird feeling of like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And it's so hard like to kind of narrow that down in your 20s. I thought that I would have it all figured out by now, and I don't, like, even a little. Like, I have ideas and things I'd like to try, but honestly, I used to think that if I tried something, I would just nail it and I would go at it and that would be my whole life and I have no worries. But now I feel like I'm going to do and try a lot of things before I hit my mark on whatever it is I'm supposed to do, which is kind of funny because the further along I get, like, in life and trying to get a career and trying to find hobbies I like, I think that there is no thing you do for life for most people. I think that it's pretty rare for someone to find one thing and they just want to do that their whole life. I think a lot of us, we want to do this for a couple of years and that for a couple of years and then switch things up. And that's how I feel. There was a point in time when I thought YouTube would be like my main thing and I would do it all the time. This isn't my first channel. I had a channel in college that I did music covers on, and I loved that channel. I grinded it out on that channel for a while, and I got decent views and decent interaction or whatever. And it just wasn't my thing, and so I switched it up. Now I also have like a blog where I write on, I have a podcast, all of these things at some point I thought were going to be my main thing, and then they weren't. Even making videos on this channel isn't like the main driver of my life anymore. I'm still trying to figure out what I want my main thing to be. Making videos is something I enjoy, but it's not my whole life. And I think that life being so much more than we expected, it can make things feel so scary and sad. Like, I think that's the best way I can say it. Like, it seems scary when you're, in your 20s and not quite sure what you want to do, and you're at a job that's not making you enough money to push further in places in life. And I don't know how many people feel this way that are like my age right now. I'd say anywhere in your 20s, you probably relate to the way I'm talking right now. Or maybe different age ranges you might feel this way, but I'm just speaking mostly from my experience. But there's this feeling of like, I don't know what I'm doing right now, and I'm scared that I'm going to have to live this way until the end of my life. That's how I feel. Like, I don't want to keep working random jobs, making just enough to get by for my whole life. I mean, there's this like fantasy world, right? They called it the American dream. I don't really hear that much anymore, but you know, people always call it like the American dream. You buy a house and you have kids and you have this really great career and you can do whatever you want and you can become an entrepreneur because you have all this money. That is not the model of life anymore. Buying a house is so expensive. Most of us don't do that, especially in like our 30s. Like the thought of being able to afford a house in my 30s feels very impossible right now. And I think that it's kind of like that was what was ingrained in us because that's what was possible not too long ago in the world. But our generation is not buying houses. Like the people that are like my age right now going into their 30s in a couple of years, we are a part of this world right now where nobody wants to talk about the fact that even $15 an hour is really sketchy to live off of. It's not easy. You're not going to be living a super luxurious life where you can follow any dream you want. At $15 an hour, you have to cut back on a lot of things and just kind of live in a way that is not thriving, but you can survive. I'm not going to say it's not survivable, but surviving isn't living. And I just feel like we're in this place in the world right now where like it's this weird, there's so much debate. I'm not trying to get political or anything. I've never really been like that on my channel, but I do feel like it's not political to say that everyone should be allowed to thrive at life, or at least have a chance to thrive at life. But I feel like the way that the world is set up right now, it's really hard for a lot of us to get our feet underneath us and to thrive. And I don't want to just survive. So I guess, that's what I was saying about like the fear. My fear is that I'll never be able to push past this barrier and live a full life. I don't want to be near retirement age and not actually have a retirement plan because I wasn't able to do that. I wasn't given the opportunities to do that. So that's something that's on my mind, right? It's the fear of being in your 20s. It's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be like this forever. And then I think there's also just the sadness of not being where you thought you would be at this age. I think a lot of people feel that way, and I certainly feel that way. We all have different, like, goals these days. I added a little interesting tidbit in here because DJ Psyched, that's one of the names I go by on this channel. I studied psychology in college, and one of the things I learned about in one of my social psychology classes was this idea of the marriage dating system, that if you're in your 20s, your parents grew up in that, and the relationship dating system, which we now live in. When our parents grew up, it was like understood that the person you're talking to is probably going to become your husband/wife, and then you guys are going to get married and have kids, or honestly, most of our parents had kids and then got married, and then you're going to settle down, and one of you is going to work and get all that money, and one of you is going to raise the kids, and this is the life you have. Like, the model was there. It was like a very clear-cut model everyone knew about. Nowadays, that model does not exist. The relationship dating model, like, the big difference between that model and our model is that ours is not defined. Not everyone is looking for marriage when they meet someone these days. In fact, a lot of people aren't because they saw the last generation didn't have that working out for them. So when you go on a date these days, like, first of all, dating has changed so much because we got online dating now and it's become this whole different thing. But when you go on a date these days, you have no idea if your date just wants to, hook up, or if your date wants to have a relationship but not too serious, or if your date wants to marry you. Like, there's so many options now. And it becomes this thing where, like, when the way that we date and see relationships and get into relationships changes, the whole model of life changes, honestly. And I'm not saying life is about relationships, but the difference is, at one point, life kind of was about relationships. There was a period of time where, like, our parents and the parents before them, the idea of staying single your whole life wasn't customary. It wasn't normal. The idea of being in a relationship that wasn't a man and a woman was not normal. It wasn't normalized, at least. I'm not saying that's abnormal. I mean, I'm here, woman. I have a female fiance. What I'm trying to say is our relationship would not have been customary back in the day. It wasn't what people expected of you. I mean, being LGBT, although people like to act like we've had rights forever and that we should just stop talking about being gay, I remember being a kid knowing I was gay and not wanting to come out because it was just not accepted when I was a kid, and I'm not that old. So I do, I mean, that's like a whole aside there, but I don't really love it when people act like LGBT people shouldn't be celebrating Pride or anything, because I am 24 years old, and when I knew I was gay, gay was not okay. So it has not been normalized for that long. That's all I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say is the way that relationships changed, the way that the whole world changed, it really does impact our whole lives, because we're not expected to be living off of 2 incomes early on in our life. We're not expected to have this model where we get married and we move straight into building a family. That's not how most people live these days. And like, honestly, it would be so interesting to see what the world would have been like if that hadn't changed, because that's not even really feasible these days. Like I said, the housing markets and everything and the way working goes, and I don't even know how that would work. All I'm trying to say is because of this new model, life has changed for us a lot. And I'm one of those people who, I wanted to get married. That's something I always knew about myself. I was kind of weirded out about it growing up because I knew I liked women, and when I was younger, it wasn't legal. So I thought I couldn't get married. So when things got like legalized, I got really excited because I realized I can get married. That's something that's available to me now. For me, that kind of ended up becoming my goal. I wanted to get married, and I had such an interesting relationship history in college, and I actually now at 24 I am engaged. If you go back on my channel, my fiance's in a few of my videos, and while I love my fiance a lot, no offense by this, it's not like being engaged or getting married is the end all be all of life and now everything's figured out. I mean, the exact opposite, honestly. Once you start to get into a very serious relationship, things only seem to get just a little bit more complicated, because you've got 2 people's life situations to figure out and to accommodate to your own. And I think as somebody who got engaged really young, I can attest to like how interesting it is to still both be finding yourselves together. And in a lot of cases, that makes relationships not work out. I do not feel that way about my fiance. She's my fiance for a reason. I didn't propose because I want to back out at some point. I proposed because I'm in it with the long haul, and I'm ready to see what we both want to do with our lives. And we've already both talked about like who we are as people and what kind of things we want in general. And I think we make a great fit together. But what I am saying is that it can be really hard to get into a long-term relationship these days because, well, if you don't know exactly who you are and what you want yet, it could be a little difficult to like settle down with someone, because what if you both end up wanting very different things? I think that if you both sit down and talk about your views way ahead of time and what your general ideas are, it's not impossible to be in a relationship, obviously, but it just gets a lot more complicated and nuanced when, one of you might be like, well, I want to go to the West and pursue a career in acting, and the other one's like, oh no, we're staying on the East Coast and we're living low key. Those are the kinds of things that when you're finding yourself, if you like are prone to just whoosh making extreme decisions, then yeah, that would make being in a relationship difficult. I don't know what this episode has turned into, but yeah, what I was saying about the relationship dating systems and the marriage dating systems is that life has just changed so much in a very short period of time. And I think it's only natural that the younger generation were feeling very lost and confused because there's no model for us to follow anymore. And I think that also we weren't fully prepared for this. We weren't. I honestly think that school, while, yeah, we learned a lot of valuable things, didn't teach us half of the valuable skills we should have learned and the things that we should have been taught about life. And I think that being this age is really scary because, you jump from being a kid to being like, every decision I make keeps the roof over my head. It's like it's a big leap to make in a short period of time, and to feel like at this age you would have everything together, it's no longer realistic. I don't think it's realistic to feel like you should have your life together at this age. Being almost 24, I can tell you that I am still constantly figuring things out about myself. I'm still constantly understanding the choices I've made in my life and if I align with them. Like, I'm just gonna get a little bit, like I said, more anecdotal for a moment. I've been, like, thinking a lot about college lately. I am, keep saying I'm 24. Yes, I'm 24. I graduated college in 2020 around the pandemic time. And when I graduated, the world was in, quite a strange place. But I think even if the world hadn't been in a strange place, I would still have had a similar situation. But the one thing about the world being in a strange place that really kind of benefited me was that I was stripped away from my college life really quickly and, put into isolation. I didn't talk to a lot of the people that I went to college with. Just like one day we just couldn't because lockdown, and I just, I'm not really a virtual person as far as connecting with people. I know it's weird because, like, I have a YouTube. I like doing it, like, over YouTube and stuff, but, like, I don't really like sliding in people's DMs or anything. So, like, I just lost connection with a lot of people. And that distance between me and college really helped me find myself because I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it other than, like, I was just feeling super, super lost at the end of my college life. And I thought that was just, okay, that's just, part of the experience, but I'm doing everything right, whatever. But then when I stepped back and I had to be in isolation and stuff, and I just started doing things, I had to make so many changes in my life. I mean, my content changed, like, wildly. How often I put out content changed. The way I viewed my, like, career life changed. Just so many things changed. And I also got into my relationship around that time. So then I was, handling a new relationship on top of all of that. And I think that I finally started to become whoever it is that I am. Like, I felt the most me I'd felt in ages. And I've recently been looking back at my college life since I feel like I'm just really different than my college version of myself. And I just, like, look back and I'm like, wow, I was 18 and I certainly had no idea who I was. And I was doing all these things that just didn't make sense for my life. And I've been, like, reflecting on that a lot lately as to how at 18 we're, like, expected to understand what we're doing. And that's just, like, crazy. Like, I don't know. I think going to college at 18 is so rough because I think very few people actually know exactly what they want to do at 18 years old. And I think for even the people who do know what they want to do at 18 years old, it doesn't make it any less, like, difficult of a time to just jump into that life. So yeah, I don't want to make this terribly long because I've already kind of made it long. I just want to talk about how, like, normal it is to feel confused at this time in your life because I feel very confused by it a lot. I don't know where my channel's going exactly, but I want it to be something that fully reflects me and my thoughts, and I want it to be something that's fun and enjoyable because this time in life is really scary. Like, being 24 is not what I thought it would be. But I still want to enjoy my life as I'm trying to figure it out. And I often mention that, like, I just have, like, a interesting history with mental health that I, like, just don't feel ready to talk about on my channel yet. And I still don't. But maybe one day I can, like, come back and share these experiences. But I would like to understand my feelings more before I start talking about them on the internet. And so this video is really rambly, but I do think that a lot of people could probably relate to the feeling of how life is just changing so quickly. And I think that none of us are going to be able to just grasp it so young. And I think that that's one of the things that I kind of have to tell myself a lot to make myself feel better about the fact that I don't know what career I want yet. The fact that, yes, I'm engaged, but I don't have the means to get married right now. Getting married it means a lot of things. You have to consider a lot of things, right? There's so many things to consider right before you get married, and there's just, I don't have the means to do it right now, but I would really love to marry my fiance, and it's just kind of this weird feeling of, like, I wish I could have it together. I wish I could know who I am. I wish I could be at that point in my life where I'm doing what I want to do and where I feel really proud of myself. And for me, making this video and talking about this is just about remembering that I'm still young and not beating myself up about where I'm at. Because I could be mad at myself from ages 18 to 22 for doing a bunch of things in college that didn't align with me and didn't get me any further in life. Honestly, most of the things I did in college are not going to contribute to my life. That's what I think right now, because I don't think any of those things really reflect me. Some of it did. I mean, I did start doing YouTube and podcasting and writing in college, which those things I think still align with who I am. But everything else, I think, it was just wasted time that I could have put into something else, but I didn't. And so for me, and I think hopefully this will help anyone else out there who's looking for this kind of advice or topic, is that we are still young, and even though we may not feel like we have it figured out, we are allowed not to have it figured out because we are still young. That was a really roundabout way to say that. But yeah, I just, yeah, that's like literally, I have to tell myself that all the time. I'm young enough to like be okay. You know, like I don't have it figured out right now, but I will figure myself out more in the coming years. And it's not a race. I know I would love to, like, by age 30, you know, have my kids and have a nice house and make a really thick income. Doesn't seem like it's going to be that way. That's okay. Like, honestly, that's just how it's got to be sometimes. And I think instead of being, like, pessimistic about it, like, oh, I'm never going to have that stuff. Like, oh, life is so hard. I'm just trying to make the most of it right now. I'm really just trying to make the most of my life right now and trying to figure out who I am without feeling so sad about it. I'm trying to enjoy making YouTube videos and content. I feel like I could have skipped a lot of the stuff I said in this video and jumped straight to this part. I might cut some of that out. I don't know. This is really long, way longer than I expected. But to end this, I just want to say that if you watch my channel, I really appreciate that. Thank you for sticking around and watching these videos. I plan to continue putting out content all year. I like to do what I call Get Psyched Fridays, where I'll either post a blog, video, or podcast. You know, you can check the link below if you want to see the podcast or the blog. But I don't always post videos on Fridays. It's just not something I have the time to do right now. But I always post something on Fridays on one of those means. So if you'd like to follow along on the journey, the Get Psyched journey, you can do that there. I am like a full-time working adult who's trying to balance my family life. You know, aside from just my fiance, I have 3 geckos, a dog, and I'm actually getting a snake this Sunday. So, you know, 5 pets, which is kind of insane, but I'm really passionate about pet care. So you see that on my YouTube too. I post videos about my pets sometimes. So yeah, if you want to like join along on the journey, the content here, it's informational and it's conversational. Sometimes I do reviews. Sometimes I do videos about life like this. Sometimes I talk about my reptiles. And a lot of the times I like to just have really great conversations with you directly or with a guest on my podcast. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, then like, comment, subscribe, stick around. You know what they say. And if you're, you know, honestly, I don't want to just exclude this to 20-year-olds. If you're in your 30s, 40s, even 50s and beyond, you don't have to feel bad about not having your whole life together. I know plenty of people who lived in the, you know, marriage dating system and are now evolving out of that and kind of stepping into the new way the world is, and they also have to readjust to that. I think the older generation, like, there's a conversation to be had about how a lot of our parents are stepping out of what they knew and stepping into the new world, and it's new to them too. It's something they're navigating too. So yeah, this isn't limited to just people in their 20s. I'm just saying that because I'm in my 20s. But yeah, I don't know. If you enjoyed this conversation, then let me know below. I would like to know what you think about all of this. And until next time, stay psyched.